What do you give to the man who has everything? This is the question faced by many veteran Star Citizen players, and also why a wipe, as is happening with 3.18, is so exciting, because it signifies the return of real progression. In my last video, I talked about features that would enhance org gameplay, and I got to watch SaltEMike react to that video on his stream. I think he raised many good points, but one in particular really struck me and I felt it warranted a video of its own. And in case it wasn't clear from that intro, no, I am not looking to start any drama. In fact, I agree with the points made and felt that they warrant further discussion, and that is why I'm making this video today. Paraphrasing what he said essentially boils down to the question at the outset: what do you give to the man who has everything? Or, more to the point, after you've acquired all the ships you want and you've amassed more AUEC than you can spend, what do? Those two elements, ships and currency, right now represent the progression that exists within Star Citizen. And you can argue that the reputation system comes in and offers another sense of progression. To an extent that is true, but at the same time, that reputation system only really helps you acquire more funds faster. Yes, you get access to more challenging missions, but to what end? Well, those missions pay more. A core component of player engagement in reality is making and fulfilling goals. A good gameplay structure has a nice mix of short, medium, and long-term goals. The shorter terms feed into the longer terms, and that helps the player have a sense of focus and direction. A short-term goal for our purposes will be anything that you can do at least once in a game session. Completing a bunker mission, mining Quantanium, bounty hunting, and the like all fall into this category. Your long-term goals might be things like acquiring ships. As an org, we worked towards getting a Carrack in the past. Everything that you do in the short term eventually leads into those long-term goals, with limited exceptions for random shenanigans you find yourself in. One weakness of the goals that Star Citizen has available for players is they are extremely limited in variety. As we've said, ships and funds. That's what you got. Now, we can look at a few other games for some inspiration on how Star Citizen could mix in more variety. Since I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2 lately, let's start there. Destiny 2, as is the case for most FPS games today, employs a battle pass. Now, I'm not saying this is something I want for Star Citizen, but I want to show how elements of a battle pass would transfer nicely. For instance, it's not just currency that acts as rewards in a battle pass. There's armor pieces, weapons, limited edition aesthetics, ships, sparrows, as well as hard to get crafting materials. Imagine if such rewards were integrated into the reputation system. In the last patch, I called Hurston my home, and the red-eyed Arnemek set that the guards are seen wearing on occasion in the bunkers seem to always be mocking me. I would love to be able to get access to those suits through legitimate means, especially since it triggers the contraband alarms when you get stopped by the police. If they became available at Tammany & Sons after reaching a certain tier in the reputation with them, that'd be perfect. Hurston is also very limited in the kinds of FPS weapons you are able to purchase. So, opening up the arsenal a bit would be another potential reward. Those same red-eyed guards are using the Demico LMGs, they must be getting them from somewhere. So if I'm in that inner circle, it makes sense that as a reward, I might be able to buy those in shops now. Discounts on Hurston Dynamics ship components is another thing that you could sprinkle into the reputation system that would greatly enhance the feeling of accomplishment for reaching those tiers. And we're starting with these kinds of additions because these should be rather easy to implement. We're talking about pre-existing assets and a few UI tweaks related to your reputation rank. So, in my albeit ignorant view of how game development works, it seems like this should be a relatively simple addition. It's also not foreign to what CIG has done in the past. I believe it was with Xenothreat that if you ranked up enough, you eventually unlocked an entire armor set as thanks for your service in the Civilian Defense Force. I think adding in smaller rewards like this would greatly flesh out the short-term gameplay and make grinding out the reputation system feel a lot more rewarding as you go. Getting access to armors that no one else can buy in stores sets you apart and gives you something to show off as a reward for your effort. And while I do think that these would greatly flesh out that short-term gameplay, it doesn't fix the problem with the long term. But I think some of the recent ISC episodes serve as a pretty good reminders of what some of those long-term goals will be. Homesteads, for one, can't be overstated here. Acquiring a homestead in and of itself represents a sizable accomplishment. But it doesn't stop there. A homestead doesn't move around. So if you anger the wrong people or you have something they want, you'll find that keeping your homestead is a likewise sizable goal. Your efforts after acquisition will go into reinforcement, maintenance, additions, and improvements. Your homestead presents a constant cost for which you'll need to be working to keep operational. But it's not just cost for cost's sake. You'll also be reaping benefits from your homestead. Farms that provide you with food, toxins, chemicals, veins of ore, manufacturing machines all present new ways to play that follow from owning your homestead. In contrast to another idea that CIG have talked about, where we'll have to rent hangar space in order to store our ships, I feel like that is adding cost for cost's sake, because we still have that benefit in the game of storing our ships, but now we have to pay for it? It doesn't seem like it really is adding much to the game besides just giving you a way to keep spending money within the currency system. But I digress. If we expand this same idea out to organizations, an excellent suggestion that came up in my last video was org hangars. And I think that this is a great idea. The org hangar presents a great opportunity to meet up with your org mates in the verse. It gives you a location from which you can launch into org operations, be it mining, multi-crew combat, and whatever else strikes your fancy. And in contrast to the hangars that I just talked about, this would be more of a social space that's yours to customize and make personal with your buddies. And that sounds fantastic. And at some point, we know these kinds of spaces will be implemented. I'm hoping that persistent entity streaming being implemented means that time may be soon. Now, we know that everything eventually has to be physicalized in-game, meaning this org hangar would have to have a location somewhere in the verse. Since space is limited at the moment and will be until dynamic server meshing is a reality and more star systems are in place, I propose that as a stopgap solution, once static meshing is in place, your org hangar could be a location that you, quote, jump to, having access given by your membership in the org. It doesn't need to tie into a real location this way. You can jump to a pseudo location that only serves as your org hangout until such a time that its true implementation can be done. Of course, these kinds of spaces would be expensive to rent in-game, so maintaining an active community will be vital to paying the rent on your org space. In much the same way as a homestead, it then serves as an engine to get players working towards maintaining it. And again, it's not cost for cost's sake, as it would provide many of the same benefits as a homestead, but now at the org scale. Another element that Star Citizen desperately needs is a sense of competition. The efforts made by the racing community of Star Citizen is admirable because up until recently, their existence was barely acknowledged. Now, they'll be getting in-game racing tracks and missions, but we really need things like leaderboards. The leaderboard that exists right now is actually community pages made by players. There is no official leaderboard nor validation to any of this. But having that in-game would really boost racing to another level. Imagine opening up your Mobiglass to check your top score at the Snake Pit to see that someone just jumped above you. Well, now you know what you'll be doing for that game session. And the same applies across the board for the other careers. If you want to claim to be the best bounty hunter, you're going to need to maintain a high kill count to earn that rep. and the best miners ought to be able to compare the metric tons of material mined and by each type. And it goes without saying that the more integrated these leaderboards are with the Mobiglass or in-game, the better. Another given here is that being able to filter by both players and by orgs is another important metric, but I think that'd be pretty obvious once we're talking about implementing a leaderboard. But having homesteads, org hangers, and leaderboards would all work to drive players to improve their skill sets and give them avenues to pursue where progress versus other players now presents a real sense of triumph and progression. But we can sneak some more in here too. Veteran players know how much attention the server events garner. They're huge, they're a ton of fun, and they hint at another aspect of the Battle Pass that carries over very well into Star Citizen, and that is rotating seasonal content. Now, this gets tough to talk about because after talking about homesteads, now we're really talking about things that are quite a ways down the road. But I digress. To start with, Star Citizen has quite a few missions to pick from, but it doesn't take that long to do them. How many times can we investigate, for instance, the Kovalex shipping facility? Some of the features that CIG has talked about as of late would make great strides to resolve this issue as they talk about more tools for getting missions into the game, but I can't emphasize enough the importance of getting a large volume of missions into players' hands. And we're also going to need more complexity for a lot of these as well. Copy-paste missions, while being easy to implement en masse, won't be enough to keep players engaged forever. Destiny has attempted to fix this by having their seasonal content missions that are time-gated to be completed piece by piece as the season progresses. Perhaps something similar could be implemented for Star Citizen as well. The most obvious carryover in that sense is Squadron 42, which will serve as the first major piece of story content. But undoubtedly, it will not and should not be the last. And having rotating seasonal content that comes in and out of availability also means that you can have limited time offers for experiences. And that would keep players coming in to check out what those new experiences are. And having regular story additions to the verse will be a necessary way of keeping players engaged. One example of how this could be implemented is in the case of Xenothreat. In addition to the major server event that spawns, the bounties you track down in the Season of the Xenothreat could all be ships with the Xenothreat skins applied. Taking them down grants you progression towards exclusive skins for your own ships, as well as armor pieces as they've done before, and exclusive weapon skins. In the case of Season of Jumptown, you have the major event that focuses on the location itself, but you also add in missions to secure major shipping lanes for the UEE, or, on the contrary aside, for the more nefarious factions. You can also add in missions to plant bugs at drop-off locations to catch criminals selling their contraband. And on the flip side, missions to find and destroy those same bugs. You can make a season revolving around espionage, where those pesky comm arrays seem to be going down more than usual, and we need to investigate why, or help it along. These are just some very surface level ideas, but having rotating themes has done a lot for getting players to check in on Destiny, and many other games as well. And I think that it could do the same for Star Citizen. The key with this is good implementation. Halo Infinite is finally hitting its stride, but we don't want to convince our friends to hop into the verse for them to find the same kind of manipulative drip of content with very little depth. The goal with all of this is to mix in variety to the kinds of things players will find themselves doing, as well as to enrich the kinds of rewards they can receive for those activities. Access to special armor pieces, skins, weapons, etc. all offer easy ways to mix it up without requiring a lot of dev time. Leaderboards also make it so that players compete against each other for top marks and reputation, as well as providing critical feedback on your progress. And further down the road, homesteads and org hangers both offer great ways to keep players motivated long term. And rotating seasonal content means that there's always a reason to come back to play Star Citizen month after month. But to sum this all up, we need more goals, more variety of goals, and much more to keep players engaged long term. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the video, and I would love to have a conversation with you in the comments below. So if there is anything that you think that I missed that you would like to see implemented as far as short-term, medium, and long-term goals, let's talk about it. Until next time, this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off. But wait, we've got a giveaway going on, sponsored by MonsterTech. MonsterTech makes fantastic gear for flight sims and space sims alike, and I've been using their flight sim chair for several months at this point, and I couldn't be happier with it. They are sponsoring a giveaway on my channel for a set of chair or desk mounts, and all you have to do to be entered to win is subscribe to my channel and comment on any of my videos during the giveaway period with that video's corresponding secret word. And this time around, the secret word is the org version of a homestead. Leave a comment below using that term, and I'll know that you watched until the very end and that you're trying to get one of those mounts. And until next time, this time for real, this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off.